182 meters of iron and bronze rising above the Narmada River. It is the tallest statue in the world, built to honor a single man. Yet the man this statue honors, the administrator who negotiated the integration of 562 sovereign kingdoms, was denied his country's highest civilian award for nearly half a century. For 41 years after his death, the Bharat Ratna was withheld. Only in 1991, following a shift in the political landscape, was his name finally added to the list of recipients. To understand the borders of India, you must look past the icon to the man himself. Patel possessed a stillness that projected absolute authority. The distance between his physical accomplishments and his absence from the official record suggests a deliberate effort to keep his influence in the margins of the national story. He was born in 1875 in the dust and heat of Western India. A farmer's son in Nadiad, Gujarat, a place the British Empire's records rarely bothered to mention. He had no inherited wealth or connections. He taught himself the law from borrowed books, building a practice from nothing until he became a formidable presence in the Gujarat legal world. In 1909, while he was mid-cross-examination in an open court, a clerk handed him a folded piece of paper. The note contained a message from a hospital. His wife, Javerba, had died during surgery. Patel read the words, folded the paper, and put it in his pocket. He didn't show a flicker of emotion. He finished the examination, won the case, and only acknowledged his grief once the court proceedings were finished. He raised his 2 children alone, saved his earnings, and eventually sailed to London. At the Middle Temple, he completed a 3-year legal course in just 30 months, finishing at the top of his class. That moment in the courtroom established the pattern for the rest of his career. He had decided that personal devastation would never be allowed to interrupt his professional responsibilities. In 1915, Patel heard Gandhi speak. Shortly after, he abandoned his lucrative practice and his westernized identity to join the independence movement. In 1928, the British administration of the Bombay Presidency imposed a 22% tax increase on the farmers of Bardoli, who were already struggling to survive. When the farmers asked Patel to lead their resistance, his conditions were strict. He told them clearly that the government would respond with arrests and the seizure of their land and cattle. For months, the farmers refused to pay. As the British escalated their confiscations, Patel organized the logistics of the resistance, moving between villages to maintain morale and communication. The British administration eventually agreed to an inquiry. The resulting commission found the tax hike unjustified, leading to a rollback and the return of the seized property. The women of Bardoli gave him the title of Sardar, or chief. The victory demonstrated his specific talent for logistical management and disciplined organization. By 1946, it was clear the British were leaving. Whoever held the presidency of the Congress Party at that moment was poised to become the first prime minister of independent India. When the provincial committees submitted their nominations, 12 out of 15 chose Patel. Not a single committee nominated Jawaharlal Nehru. However, Gandhi intervened, expressing a preference for Nehru. He believed Nehru's international profile and secular appeal were better suited for the transition of power. The two men were opposites. Nehru was the charismatic orator. Patel was the internal pragmatist, a man who assessed everything and revealed very little. Patel withdrew his nomination without a public protest. He accepted the role of Deputy Prime Minister and Home Minister, shifting his focus to the administrative challenges ahead. This decision to prioritize unity over personal ambition secured his place as the stabilizing force of the new government. On August 15, 1947, as jubilant crowds celebrated in the streets, Sardar Patel was in his office, focused on a series of maps. He recognized a reality that the celebrations ignored. India's borders were a collection of British administrative districts interspersed with hundreds of sovereign territories. There were 562 princely states. Under the terms of independence, each one had the legal right to join Pakistan or declare themselves a fully independent nation. These kingdoms sat on critical rivers, essential railways, and vital ports. If they chose to remain independent, they would cut through the new nation like fractures through stone. Winston Churchill predicted that this geographical complexity would be fatal, expecting the country to break apart into 20 separate warring pieces. During this crisis, Patel's health was failing. Despite his heart condition and doctor's orders to rest, he was working 18-hour days to manage the transition. Working with his key aide, VP Menon, he designed the legal framework of accession, creating a pathway for the princes to surrender their sovereign powers to the new union. The timeline was measured in weeks. He had to negotiate with hundreds of monarchs, using diplomacy, pressure, and the threat of force to secure the map before it shattered. The personal losses and political setbacks of his past had resulted in a temperament uniquely suited for this moment. As India celebrated its freedom, Patel was beginning the work of ensuring the nation would actually survive its birth. In August 1947, as millions celebrated in the streets and listened to speeches about India's freedom, the actual mechanics of that freedom were unraveling in a quiet government office in New Delhi. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and his top civil servant, VP Menon, were looking closely at the administrative reality the British Empire had left behind. This historical map shows India prior to August 1947. The shaded regions denote 562 sovereign princely states. Under the terms of independence, the rulers of these territories possessed the full legal right to join Pakistan or to declare themselves entirely independent nations. Together, these kingdoms controlled approximately 40% of the subcontinent's landmass. They contained nearly 100 million people, sitting squarely on top of the new nation's essential railways, river systems, and ports. Winston Churchill understood the structural geometry of this problem perfectly. He predicted that this exact geographical complexity would cause the subcontinent to break apart into 20 separate warring pieces. Patel's next moves were now a matter of strict national survival. Patel's primary method for securing the map was an elegant piece of legal architecture designed by Menon, known as the Instrument of Accession. The document asked the princes to surrender only defense, external affairs, and communications. Everything else, internal administration, courts, and private wealth, they kept. By guaranteeing their financial security, Patel constructed a deal completely irrational to refuse. Working systematically through the list of kingdoms and utilizing the formidable personal prestige of the departing Governor-General, Lord Mountbatten, to influence the royals, Patel and Menon closed deals week by week. Patel secured the vast majority of the continent through calculated bureaucratic pragmatism. However, a select few rulers calculated that their strategic geography or their immense wealth provided enough leverage to defy the new government. The young, inexperienced Maharaja of Jodhpur, whose state bordered Pakistan, attempted to use this leverage. He entered into direct negotiations with Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who offered the Maharaja a signed blank sheet of paper, promising any terms he wanted. Patel's intelligence network intercepted the maneuver. His representative arrived with the Instrument of Accession and delivered a swift, unyielding presentation of what joining Pakistan would actually mean for the Hindu majority state. The Maharaja recalculated his position and signed with India. In Junagadh, the ruler announced accession to Pakistan, despite his territory being entirely landlocked by India. This strategic absurdity was swiftly dismantled by a plebiscite, resulting in a 99% vote to join the Indian Union, proving that where paper failed, targeted leverage succeeded. But there was one outlier where diplomacy completely exhausted its utility. Patel described the state of Hyderabad in unsparing terms, an ulcer in the heart of the nation. Hyderabad was the largest princely state, with a population of 17 million. Its ruler, the Nizam, was largely considered the wealthiest man in the world. He demanded permanent independence and entirely rejected the Instrument of Accession. He also possessed a private militia known as the Razakars, who executed a campaign of escalating terror against Hyderabad's civilian population. Prime Minister Nehru urged caution, preferring continued diplomacy to avoid the optics of military action so soon after independence. Patel calculated the math differently. Every single day of delay was costing 1,000 innocent lives. This diagram illustrates Operation Polo, launched in September 1948. The Indian Army executed a precise four-pronged advance into the territory. Confronted by a professional military force, the Nizam surrendered in exactly 5 days. Patel's willingness to deploy decisive force to protect civilian lives achieved in less than a week what a year of diplomacy could not, officially securing the geographical center of the nation. By late 1950, the physical architecture of the unified nation was complete, but the administrator who built it was failing. Decades of stress and 18-hour workdays had weakened his heart. Even as his body gave out, he ignored his doctors and continued dictating government correspondence, including a prescient letter to Nehru warning of the specific strategic military threat China posed, a warning that would materialize 12 years later in the 1962 war. Sardar Patel died on December 15, 1950. He left behind no personal fortune and no estate. He left behind the secured borders of the world's largest democracy. Patel's unbreakable resolve drove him to sacrifice his own physical health to ensure the state survived its infancy. And then, the official history of the country systematically moved on without him. Over the ensuing decades, the new nation's airports, institutions, and central programs were named for others. The ultimate piece of evidence regarding his neglect is a matter of public record. India's highest civilian honor, the Bharat Ratna, was withheld from the man who integrated the country for 41 years. It was finally awarded to him in 1991. Today, a modern counter-verdict stands over the Narmada River, 182 meters of bronze and iron. The Statue of Unity was built using iron donated directly from the plows of Indian farmers, the descendants of the very people he organized at Bardoli decades earlier. The answer to who truly held this nation together remained within the map itself, quietly waiting for history to finally credit its architect.